You don't have trust issues. That phrase is a lie you've been sold to make a fully functional survival system sound like a defect. What you actually have is a threat detection algorithm running in the background of every relationship you've ever had, and it has a 100% accuracy rate at doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem isn't that it's broken. The problem is that it was built for a war that ended years ago and nobody sent it the memo. Here's what nobody tells you. The moment you feel yourself pulling back from someone who hasn't actually done anything wrong yet, that's not intuition. That's not reading people. That's a program executing, and it was written before you were old enough to consent to the terms. I'm going to show you exactly where that program was installed, what it's silently costing you right now, and the specific mental override that lets you finally run your own decisions instead of the ones your nervous system made for you at age 6. But first, sit with this. There is a very specific moment, a single split-second behavior that almost everyone with trust damage performs on a loop, and most of them have never once noticed they're doing it. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. You're going to feel it happen inside this video before I name it. Keep that in mind. It's coming. Picture a house where love was never absent, but it was conditional in ways too subtle to file a complaint about. Maybe a parent who said, "I promise," the way other people say maybe. Maybe affection that showed up generously on good days and vanished completely on bad ones, with no warning system, no pattern you could study your way into predicting. Maybe you told someone something private once, something that cost you to say out loud, and later heard it repeated back to you by someone who wasn't supposed to know it. Not cruelly, casually, like it had never belonged to you in the first place. That's the moment. Not a single dramatic betrayal. A slow education in the fact that information given freely gets used eventually. That softness shown consistently gets exploited eventually. That the people closest to you are also the people with the clearest shot. Your brain, which is a prediction machine before it's anything else, took notes. And the note it wrote down wasn't "that person is unsafe." The note it wrote down was "closeness is the mechanism by which I get hurt." Not that person, closeness itself, the variable, not the individual. That's the difference between someone who was hurt once and healed and someone who is quietly, permanently bracing. One learned a person was dangerous. You learned that intimacy was the delivery system of danger. And intimacy doesn't go away just because the person who taught you that lesson did. Psychologists sometimes call it hypervigilant attachment. I'd call it something more accurate. You built a pre-crime unit, a part of your mind whose entire job is to scan every new relationship for the earliest possible signature of betrayal, so you can exit before the damage lands instead of after. And here it is. Here's the behavior I told you was coming. You test people, not on purpose, not consciously. You create small, almost invisible moments of friction. You go quiet when you'd normally respond. You cancel first before they can. You mention something slightly too vulnerable just to clock their reaction. And you are not doing this to connect. You are doing this to gather threat data. Every interaction with someone you're starting to care about doubles as a background check, and you don't even experience it as suspicion. It feels like just being careful. It feels like just being smart.
The exhausting part is that this system never turns off, even with people who've done absolutely nothing to earn the surveillance. Your nervous system doesn't do case-by-case evaluation. It does pattern matching. And once closeness precedes pain gets written into the pattern library early enough, every new person walks in already half convicted. Here's the part that should actually unsettle you. This isn't only happening inside your childhood home anymore. It's being actively harvested by systems that have nothing to do with your parents and everything to do with your attention. Every time you doom scroll a feed engineered to show you betrayal, infidelity, friendship drama, red flag content, you are feeding the exact same threat detection loop your childhood installed. The algorithm and the attachment wound are running the same software. One was built by your household, one is built by engineers who get paid based on how long they can keep that alarm system active in your skull. Different architects, same prison. Before I go further, I want you to do something, because the rest of this only works if you actually engage instead of just absorbing it passively. Subscribe if this is landing, and then in the comments, name the specific behavior, the test you run, the exit you stage, the wall you put up, that you just recognized in yourself while reading this. Not the general idea, the specific move. Naming it in writing is the first act of taking it out of the unconscious and putting it somewhere you can actually work on it. Now here's what this costs you, and I want you to actually feel the weight of this instead of skimming past it. Every relationship you enter gets an invisible probation period that the other person never agreed to and doesn't know exists. You give partial versions of yourself, timed and rationed, waiting for proof of safety that your nervous system has set at a threshold most humans can't actually clear. Because the threshold isn't, has this person been consistent? The threshold is, has this person been consistent long enough that my 6-year-old nervous system finally stands down? And that number is often higher than most relationships survive to reach. So you don't get betrayed less, you get abandoned by your own hand more, because you left before the ending arrived, convinced you'd simply seen it coming. You call this being realistic. Sometimes you call it being a good judge of character. It is neither. It's a self-fulfilling loop where your withdrawal creates the very distance you were trying to detect in advance, and then you pointed the distance as proof your instincts were right. Here's the reframe, and this is the one that actually matters. The system you built was never irrational. Predicting harm before it lands is one of the most sophisticated things a young mind can do with insufficient resources and zero backup. You weren't paranoid. You were doing threat modeling with a child's brain and adult stakes, and you did it well enough to survive whatever needed surviving. That is not a character flaw. That is proof of a highly capable pattern recognition system, aimed for now at the wrong target. Because here is what that same wiring gives you when it's finally pointed correctly. People with this history read rooms other people can't. They notice the half-second delay before someone answers a question honestly. They catch incongruence between words and tone that most people miss entirely. This is not a soft skill you were taught. This is a survival skill you were forced to master. And once it's decoupled from constant threat and aimed with intention instead of fear, it becomes one of the sharpest social instruments a person can carry. The goal was never to delete the system. The goal is to take it off autopilot and put it under your own command. So here is the actual reprogramming, the part that goes beyond insight into function.
Every time you notice the urge to test, withdraw, or preemptively exit, do not act on the impulse and do not suppress it either. Do both of those and you either reinforce the old loop or bury it somewhere it'll resurface worse later. Instead, run what I'd call an evidence audit. Ask one specific question, out loud if you have to. What has this actual person in front of me right now actually done? Not what have people done historically, not what could theoretically happen, but what has this specific human with their specific track record actually done to earn the alarm currently going off? 9 times out of 10, you'll find the alarm is running on inherited data, not current evidence. That gap, the half-second between the trigger firing and you complying with it, is the entire battlefield. Every time you catch that gap and choose response over reflex, you are manually rewriting the threat model one repetition at a time. This is not a one-time fix. It is a rep-based rewrite, exactly like training a muscle that was locked in one position for 2 decades. It will feel unnatural at first. Unnatural is not the same as unsafe. Your body will read the discomfort of doing something new as danger, because novelty and danger get processed in overlapping regions of the brain. Push through the false alarm anyway. That's the actual work.
The second move is longer range, but non-negotiable if you want this to stick permanently. Stop letting your standard for trust be perfection. Trust was never supposed to be a verdict you reach once and then relax forever. It was supposed to be a live, ongoing process of small proofs, accumulated slowly, allowed to matter even when they're incomplete. The old model demands airtight certainty before it grants access. The new model grants provisional access based on consistent small evidence and adjusts in real time. That single shift from certainty-based trust to evidence-based trust is the difference between a nervous system that's armored and one that's actually intelligent. And understand what you're up against while you do this. It isn't only your household anymore. It's every dopamine-optimized platform selling you a steady diet of betrayal, scarcity, and red flags, because vigilance keeps you scrolling and connection doesn't. The system profits from you staying suspicious. Your X-conditioning and the modern algorithm want the exact same outcome for different reasons, and both benefit from you never realizing it's a choice at all. Go back to that house for a second. The kid who learned that softness gets repeated back to you, that promises are optional, that closeness comes with a bill eventually. That kid wasn't wrong about the room they were standing in. They read that room with total accuracy. But you have not been standing in that room for a long time. You've been running its emergency protocol in rooms that were never on fire, evacuating relationships that had no exit required, standing guard over a border nobody was actually invading. You don't need to become someone who trusts blindly. That's not liberation. That's just a different kind of unconsciousness. What you need is what you were always capable of and never given the safety to practice. Trust that's earned in real time, calibrated to real evidence, run by you on purpose instead of a 6-year-old's threat model quietly steering an adult's entire life from somewhere just below your notice. The alarm still lives in you, it's just no longer in command. That's the whole difference, and you're the only one who gets to decide which one runs the show from here.